Yeah, I mean, all
film.
the questions coming in, they're trying to, they're for Delmas when he comes back on.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You know what, Shaun? Let's go ahead and take those questions because I can answer them for them. And your viewers, any questions you have about American school shooters and serial killers, I'll answer it.
Yeah.
Anybody you have, I've talked to hundreds of them. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and shoot them to me. And if there's something I can't answer, I'll say let's wait till Delmas comes back on.
Okay. What do you know about Ed Gein and getting the skinning women?
Yeah, there's Ed Gein right here. He's actually in my office. This is Ed. Ed Gein is fascinating to me. I have several pieces in my collection from Ed Gein. He was a very early serial killer from Wisconsin and Plainfield, Wisconsin. And a lot of people don't think he's a serial killer, but he definitely is. He killed, the FBI just changed their description of a serial killer. So everybody needs to know this because I hear this nonstop on these pages. Like, you have to kill 3 people. No, you don't. 2 victims. The FBI, United States FBI, says you have to kill 2 victims with the cooling off period. Ed Gein has killed 2 victims with the cooling off period. If Ed Gein's not a serial killer, we have no serial killers. He fucking stripped them and gutted them and hung them in a shed and made bowls out of their heads. I mean, Ed Gein is a serial killer and he's intriguing to me. And he went to a mental hospital, which is ironic. He didn't go to prison. He went to a mental hospital, died at the age of like 84. And I have several pieces from Ed in my collection.
Karen Bishop wants to know, these are the killers that we know about that we're discussing today, but how many crazies are out there that we don't know about?
I think, Ron, you were asking this question before we went online. There are about 50 to 100 active serial killers in the United States. So looking at the numbers,
that's 2 a state.
Okay, Shaun, let's look at the numbers. So if there's 50 to 100 in the U.S., let's just say there's at least 5 active serial killers in the UK at any given time, right? Wow. So we have at least 50 to 100 active serial killers. A lot of serial killers in America, the United States, are operating in big cities, and they're targeting sex workers. And in the United States, we call these victims less dead. Like, that's sick, but that's what we call them. They're less dead. They're dead, but they're less dead because they weren't really missed. That's what Delmas said.
Damn.
They're not missed. They're crackitudes.
I forgot to bring that up when that question was raised. There's also an issue with the way that crime's reported in America between states that make it easy for these truck drivers to pick up a woman in Florida, drive to another state and dump her body because of how information is exchanged between local departments, if that makes sense. So even if you're dumped just in the next state, you're picked up as a Jane Doe, and the people in your state may never find out you're that you've been. Do you see what I mean? And that was because of the Long Island killer. That was one of the things that that paced his victims together, was when these police departments actually started corresponding between each other. And I thought that was fascinating because basically, if you want to be a serial killer, you just go to America and get a truck license, as far as I'm concerned. It's kind of like with the sexual predators and the pedophiles, you just work your life to become a teacher. Like, that seems to be the common aces in places for these these people.
Well, you could do this in the UK too, Ron, and you could do this in Europe, and you do this anywhere. If you could just you don't kill everybody in one location. Okay. If you can kill people in different locations, they have trouble connecting them together. There was a time in the United States when you could get away with this, like the systems were ancient, archaic, and you could do that. Yeah. Today it's a little tougher, but we all know the truth. Dennis Rader, BTK, killed 10 people in one community. Anthony Sowell, the guy that just died in Ohio, the Cleveland Strangler, killed 11 women in one neighborhood. That is really tricky and tough to do. But when you're like Delmas Colvin and you're traveling the country and you pick up a woman in Illinois and you dump her in Nebraska, going to be tough to solve. I'm always intrigued with the guys that kill, or the women that kill everybody in one nursing home, community, or location. Those to me are like John Wayne Gacy killed 33 boys in one neighborhood.
Yeah, that's wild.
How do you get away with that?
Right? Exactly. We've got a really good question. We've got a really good question here from 12-Step Mum.
Yeah.
Was this guy an organized or disorganized serial killer? And was his stepmom white? I'm talking about Delmas.
Okay. Delmas Colvin's stepmom was black. He was black. His father was black. So they're all black males, black females.
Killer.
Was he disorganized or organized?
I say he was an opportunistic killer.
Like that's like some old school FBI. I get that. I don't really go by that, but I'm just going to play the game. He was organized. He was very meticulous, and he disposed the victims, disposed the clothing. He was organized.
Okay.
But I don't spend a lot of time talking organized, disorganized. I'm looking at different things, but I get what they're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, good
Anybody
question.
else?
Yeah.
Let's take some questions about American serial killers, mass murderers, school shooters.
Let's go.
LC Phil wants to know, what do brain studies say about male serial killers?
You know, they've kept the brains of several killers, like people like John Wayne Gacy and Ted Bundy and others, and a lot of them come back to their normal. So we, as a people, we want to say these monsters are monsters because obviously something's wrong with their brain. But here's what I want to say to you, and this is important, Shaun. I don't think these guys are mentally ill. I don't think they're crazy. I think they have a personality defect. And, you know, people are like, well, what do you mean? Well, you know, they like to kill people, but it doesn't mean they're crazy. Like they know exactly what they're doing. They know how to get away with it. I use there's a description in the United States we use where who is crazy? Like it's called the McNaughton rule, which you don't know what you're doing. That's crazy, mentally insane. These guys are not mentally insane. They have wives, they have girlfriends, they have jobs, they go on cruises, they live normal lives.
Yeah.
They have this one little problem, Shaun, this one little itty bitty problem. They like to kill people.
Well, I think we've had so much change with mental health over the years. I just like to say this is just good old fashioned crazy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's like that. It's all it can boil down to is the difference between me and Delmas is after we go for play a game of tennis, I'm going home to do a live stream. He's going to go and murder a hooker. Do you see what I'm saying? Like where and how that's where my brain starts frizzling out when I try and figure that out, Phil, because
let me tell you a story, Shaun, that's very interesting. You're going to love this. Delmas Colvin. We're talking about just Delmas tonight. We could talk about other killers other nights, but Delmas Colvin runs his own trucking business. He probably makes $100,000 a year. He's got a side business where he sells drugs and prostitutes, and he makes another probably, I don't know, $50,000 a year. He has a fiance who has no idea who he is. Okay, so he's a normal guy. He goes to Miami, rides a scooter, goes on cruises, drinks nice rum drinks, and has a good time. So Delmas Colvin is driving a truck he drives all over the country. He drives to let me just say he's in Idaho. No, he told me South Dakota. He's parked a semi truck. So you've driven around, you see a semi truck parked, and there's this large black man, and he seems kind of friendly. So a white guy pulls up and says to him, "What are you doing here? It's Thanksgiving." He says, there's no truck stops around here, so I'm just going to stay at Walmart for the night. And the guy says, "Wait a minute. You have nowhere to go?" "No." "Grab your stuff and come with me." So the white guy takes this black serial killer, who he doesn't know that, to his house. And they have dinner, drinks, dessert. They're celebrating Thanksgiving. And he says, "I'm sitting on the back porch with this guy. I'm drinking beers. We're talking sports and politics. We had a nice night. He took me back to my truck. And then I drove my truck back to Ohio, where I lived, to my fiance, Robin. And I told Robin the story," he said, Delmas Colvin. I said, "Yeah, I went out there. I met this white guy, and I went to his house, and we had drinks, and she looked at him. And Robin, his fiance, said this to him: 'Delmas, are you fucking crazy? He could have been a serial killer.'"
Oh my God.
She's talking to a serial killer, but she doesn't know it because she's going to marry him.
Shit.
And she's worried
Damn.
about the white guy. That's how crazy this is,
That's
Shaun.
crazy.
These are normal. These are normal people.
What's their relationship like? I mean, did she, once he was caught, did she just cut ties right away, or did she try and support him?
When he was caught, she went into shock and collapsed. She could not believe he did this. She was going to marry this man. She loved him. He liked, by the way, Ron, you asked a racial question. She was a white female.
Yeah.
Delmas loves white women. That's who he loves. And she was a white female. And she could not believe that Delmas Colvin, in fact, at first she said she didn't believe it, but she had to when he confessed. But yeah, she just like collapsed. In fact, one night he told me a prostitute came to his house in Toledo, Ohio, and was beefing with them like, you owe me money for drugs. And he said, oh, hold on one second. Meet me in the backyard. Now, his fiance was sleeping in the house. He said, I met her in the backyard. I strangled her to death, dropped her on the ground, and covered her with the kiddie pool. I went back to sleep. I woke up in the morning, got my truck, and dumped her body.
Damn.
He has no idea this is happening, Shaun. She has no idea.
Does she still communicate with him?
Oh, no. So once he got arrested, she was gone.
She was gone.
That's usually what happened.
Damn. I just quickly want to just give a shout out to my buddy Uncle Shane in the side chat. I know your son and family and everyone's watching, so big shout out to you, and thanks again for getting the ball rolling.
Wait. We have to give Shane a major shout out.
Yeah,
Shane has been really cool, and he's connected Ron and I.
Yeah.
See, people don't know this. Ron and I were lovers back in college, and we just been reunited.
Exactly.
Thank you, Shane, for that.
I keep telling you, we're going to plug the OnlyFans at the end, Phil. Okay, save the OnlyFans plug for the end. All right, Jesus. Okay, so
what else you got?
You got a question from Y2K Sports, Phil.
Okay.
Do most school shooters not have dads?
Holy shit! Whoever Y2K Sports is brilliant.
Good question.
So you know. When you look at my causes of why kids kill, let me just show you this. This is my list, right? Let's see if you can see this. Number one, look at the number one cause. It says
fatherless. Damn.
So Y2K Sports, first of all, did you go to my page and download my notes and you're like being like shady?
Yeah.
But yes. Here's the top causes, right? Why do I can even apply this to serial murder? Like, why do kids kill? Number one, no daddy. Number two, unstable home. Something's wrong at home. Dysfunction, abuse, or something. Number three, they're being bullied or harassed. Number four, they're obsessed with violent entertainment, violent video games, violent music, violent pornography. And number five, they love guns, bombs, and knives. So if you take those, there's 13 causes of my thing, Shaun, and that's why I give you that notebook. But you're right, Y2K Sports. The statistics are overwhelming. If a kid doesn't have you can have a father, but if you don't have a daddy, it's bad.
Scottish Lass wants to know where you lean on the nature versus nurture debate.
I believe you are not born a serial killer. I believe you become a serial killer. So let's see, it's nurture instead of nature. There's no way you're born a serial killer. No way. Everybody's born the same. But I believe you are nurtured to be a serial killer.
A question from me then. Do you think that serial killers have a purpose? So if you roll the clock back hundreds of years, they would have been the first people that would have got up and defended the village. If rivals like the Vikings were coming in to slaughter your town, they would have got up. They had no fear, and hence they have a purpose, but now they're an anachronism.
I think that's true. I mean, that's the psychopathic, the psychopathic personality, the narcissistic personality. Yes, I believe those people have existed forever. In fact, if you look in the Bible times, the early times, people reacted that way. So I believe we've been here. What did Cain kill Abel or whatever? I mean, this has been happening since the beginning of time.
Riviera wants to know, do you agree that most humans have the latent capability to kill?
I would say yes. I think all of us have the capability to kill. We just have this we have this limit on us that stops us from doing this, right? Like sometimes Ron doesn't get my videos done on time, and I would like to kill Ron, but there's something that keeps me back and holds me back.
Never once has there been a video not done on time. Editing's on point, son, on point.
But, you know, we all have that in us. We've all had disputes with people. We all have haters. We all have beefs. But there's something that keeps us from committing murder. And I'm in that capability. I mean, I have the same father as John Wayne Gacy. I could be a killer easily, right? Like I come from poverty, dysfunction. My father was alcoholic. I've been belittled. I'm the same guy, but I took that and used it for good instead of bad. But do we all have it in us? I think so. Yes. If you guys will go to my fan page, if you join my fan club, I post videos of real murders. There was just give you an example. There was these two neighbors were shoveling snow in the U.S. and the one couple was putting snow on the neighbor's property. He didn't like it, so they were beefing, and they were like, "Fuck you, you suck, you pussy." He went and got a gun and gunned them both down and murdered both of them in the road. And it's all on video if you go to my fan club. And I say that like we all have that capability. But there's something that keeps most of us from doing that. Like I'd like to kill my neighbor sometimes, but it's just, I just can't. Like, I don't want to go to prison or whatever. But is it in us? Let's be honest. From the beginning of time, murder's been in us.
Yeah.
Sharif wants to know, based on your research, have you ever found a satanic element in the school shooters? And I'd like to extend that to just a satanic element in all of the murderers that you've researched.
You know, a lot of them don't talk about the satanic element. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, there's a few. But if you want to be straight, like, I don't see a lot of that. As a spiritual guy, like as a faith-based guy myself, I see the satanic element below everything, but these guys will not talk about that. Richard Ramirez, a couple school shooters, a couple teen killers, but it's very, very few. I would say at least 5% of talk about that. Most of them don't acknowledge that.
Okay.
Wacket Pepper wants to know, are there any telltale signs if you are face-to-face with a serial killer?
There's not many signs of a serial killer. Now, I have tons of signs. If you go to philchalmers.com/notes, you're going to get the warning signs of teen killers and school shooters. Teen killers and school shooters are easy to spot. Okay, they're easy. That's what I do for a living. Serial killers are not. One of the things that they do is they commit petty crimes. They commit sex crimes. They're involved in stalking and peeping Tom activities. They will come into your house and steal your underwear. I went into Ron's house and stole his underwear.
Hey, listen.
Once I saw him, I left him. I left the house and I was like, no.
Yeah, listen, that's only because you're not allowed to sell your underwear on eBay anymore. You can't sell used underwear anymore.
Put your hood back on.
My hood's on.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. So Shaun, let me give you a little debut. This is a show we have coming on called the Delmas and Daisy Show, Shaun. Come over here. This is a hit show.
It's a hit show
featuring my deaf boxer puppy.
Here we go.
Deaf boxer puppy. Wow. Oh.
Look, she can't hear a lick, Shaun. You can call her whatever you want.
Oh.
Call her whatever you want. She doesn't hear a lick, but she's my little deaf boxer. Part of the show, Daisy. Her name is Daisy.
She's so damn cute,
so
man.
y'all want to hear from Daisy, and we're training her, Shaun, with sign language. She doesn't hear, so she already knows how to sit, stay. She shakes her hand, so she's doing good.
So if you want to hear from Daisy, because she damn well won't be able to hear from you, tune into the Delmas and Daisy show for updates. And
he's Shaun Attwood, and listen, he has two. He has two teams in Attwood. Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. It's not the other Attwood. It's not the other Attwood.
Yorkshireman 1972 wants to know, how many serial killers have an unhealthy closeness to their mothers?
Okay. So when you take the typical serial killer, they have a lot of mommy issues. Okay. The typical teen killer and school shooter has daddy issues. The typical serial killer, this is really weird. They have both. Usually they have no father and they have a crazy fucking mother. And so whoever asked that question is brilliant. Yes, Ed Kemper, John Wayne Gacy, all these guys have mommy issues. And you know, something's happened to them, but that's kind of the basis. Now, I would say, Shaun, it's like 50%. So like 50%, yes, that's easy. That's easy to fix. The other 50%, there's something else that happened to them. Maybe they had decent parents, but they went out, you know, they got involved in porn, or they found some. Let me show you, Shaun. Like they may have discovered detective magazines, which were big in the United States, like Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, Dennis Rader, BTK. They discovered something that kind of pushed them towards this. So what I would say to you, Shaun, and all your listeners, we cannot put all serial killers into a box because they're all different.
Correct.
Dexter Colvin will tell you, I had a perfect childhood. I never got spanked by my father. I never got suspended from school. I had a great life. So you're like, whoa. You killed animals. No, I didn't. You come from your father beat you. No, I didn't. No, he didn't. So you can't lump everybody into John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, and John Gacy. You have to expand, and that's what I'm doing. Serial killers are very different. School shooters, not so much. But once you kind of like get the pattern, you try to help these people. It's very tough to help psychopathic serial killers.
Mike Silver has asked, do you think, similar to super predators like Epstein, Peter Nygaard, and if people haven't saw, we interviewed Peter Nygaard's son, one of the actual victims on Attwood Unleashed 3 the other day. Do you think there might be famous celebs who may be capable of secretly being a serial killer, but they use their wealth to help cover themselves? Yeah, I'd be interested, are serial killers from poor backgrounds in general? Perhaps would a wealthy serial killer be less likely to be detected?
I would say you're more likely to have people who are predators and, child molesters and stuff like that. Serial killers, not so much. We have a few wealthy serial killers, but it's rare. A lot of serial killers are not wealthy. A lot of them come from, they're either poor or they're on the street or whatever. So the answer to that is no. I would think they'd be more apt to be predators and molesters and, sex traffickers than they would be serial killers. We see serial killers not to be the upper echelon of finances. They're more like middle class or lower class.
Scottish Lass wants to know your thoughts about Fred and Rose West. And my follow-up question to that would be, how common then are partnership serial killers like Fred and Rose West?
Yeah, Fred and Rose West were very obviously violent, dangerous serial killers. And we do see serial killers working in tandem, whether they're spouses or partners. We've had our share of those in the U.S. I would just say to all of your UK listeners, I would just be straight up. I'm not an expert on UK serial killers, and I won't pretend to be. My forte is American serial killers. But we do see our share of serial killers working in tandem. And a lot of times, the only time you see a female serial killer is when she's working with a male. So it becomes very rare that a serial killer female is by herself. So Fred and Rose West are pretty common. We've had our share of those. I could name off a bunch of tandems, but yeah, it's rare. It happens, but it's rare.
Sharif wants to know, how common are law enforcement serial killers?
It's rare, but we have them. There was a guy named Gerald Schaefer in the United States who was a cop, and he was a serial killer. It's pretty rare. Gosh, I'd say it's 1% to 3% of serial killers are cops. Interesting enough, Ron, listen up. Interesting enough, there was a guy named Gerald Schaefer.
Okay.
He was a cop in the United States who became a serial killer. You ready for this, Ron?
Oh, damn.
He was killed in prison by another serial killer named Vincent Rivera. Vincent Rivera just wrote me and says, I'm game. I want to interview with you. So Ron, you and I are going to interview. We're going to interview a serial killer who killed a serial killer.
Damn.
Who was a cop. So yeah, that's coming up, baby. Stay tuned.
Yeah, we're doing a Sunday stream called Serial Sundays live on Phil Chalmers' channel this Sunday. So if you want some more serial killer deep divey goodness, come and join us Sunday night, 9 o'clock UK time. And yeah, for sure.
And Shaun, as you're taking questions, let your people know. Delmas Colvin may call back in the last 15 minutes or whatever. So if anybody has a deep, they have to get a question answered from Delmas Colvin, let's put that in the chat.
Yeah, it's gonna get flooded as soon as he calls back. I could tell. Okay, so Be Real wants to know, why do many serial killers have a time frame into the next kill, such as a year later to the month of the last kill?
So what is called is a cooling off period. So what we see it typically is a serial killer may kill, and let's say they take 6 months, and imagine you're living your life and you kill someone, like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And then 6 months later, you bump into someone else and you kill them. And then 3 months later, you kill again. And then a month later, you kill again. And then a week later, you kill again. It kind of steps up. Like, there is a cooling off period, and you have to have a cooling off period. You can't go into one room and kill 8 people. Like Richard Speck killed 8 nurses in the United States in Chicago. He's a mass murderer. He killed 8 people. He didn't have a cooling off period. You have to have a cooling off period. And what happens, Shaun, is you kill and you're like, oh my gosh, that's done. Now you have a little cooling off period. Then you start fantasizing. I think I'd like to kill again. And then you're like, who am I going to kill? Oh, I'm going to start stalking. Oh, there's a nice little blonde that lives, on this street. And you start stalking her and you kill her again. And then you go on another cooling off period and you work up to, so kind of that's how it works. But in the United States, the FBI says it takes 2. So when you kill someone, take a break and kill again, you're a serial, because you killed in a series. Yeah. You're a serial killer.
So tonight it's been raised about, is this an addiction and the compulsivity? So does that cooling off period then shorten? Like, a person who's addicted to drugs has to do more drugs to get that same high?
Absolutely. It shortens and you get addicted to it. And even people like Delmas Colvin that won't admit. Now, Shaun, you asked him straight up and he wouldn't admit to it. Delmas Colvin is killing his stepmother every time he kills, and he's addicted to it, but he can't tell you. But he loves the feeling of it, right? And he loves the feeling that he could kill this person and get away with it. Even here live, he will not admit that. He'll go to his grave saying, I won't admit that. But he loves it. In fact, he's on the phone again.
Damn.
So if you have a question for Delmas Colvin, he's back in our last 18 minutes.
Let's go.